From concrete fortresses wrapped in hanging gardens to the largest mansions built to hold entire dynasties. These are the homes of women who lost everything when their husbands died, but honored their memory by rebuilding global empires from nothing. How does a woman turn the worst moment of her life into a legacy that outlasts them both? And what really happened in the years between the funeral and the fortune? Join us as we step inside the hidden mansions of the Philippines' richest widows. You don't want to miss number 1. Number 5. The Wenceslao City Home. She is a doctor who now runs a massive real estate empire. Her name is Dr. Sylvia Wenceslao, and she is worth $275 million. An impressive feat, no question. But even more impressive is the home she currently lives in. As we'll explore, Sylvia Wenceslao's family lives in a massive facility right next to Asiana City, the massive project her late husband spent most of his adult life building. It contains the Ayala Mall's Manila Bay, the passport office near the airport, and the Singapore School Manila. All inside the 204-hectare business district along the bay between SM Mall of Asia and the Entertainment City complex. From every single building to all the open spaces and roads, everything was built by the Wenceslao family. As for the home, it's mounted behind high walls and away from traffic. The house is massive, really massive, with a wide room and large hallways. Although the rest of the family would later move out to Mid-Park Towers in 2024, the home was designed to hold the entire extended family, including her 4 sons, along with their wives and her grandchildren. The interiors are marked by custom wood panels on every wall, with the kind of finish you'd see in the tall office towers right next door. Just as you might expect, and an entire team of house staff that keeps everything going. But this is where it gets interesting. Apart from having state-of-the-art technology and designs made to keep the building strong, neat, and secure, most of the home's interiors are older materials, relics, and artworks that go all the way back to early 1959. Why so, you may ask? Sylvia's company started over 60 years ago as a one-man project ran by engineer Delphin Wenceslao. When his son took over, he wanted to expand his father's business from one home into an entire city. He came up with the entire plan on his own without any input from anybody, and after helping the government reclaim at least 2 million square meters of land from the water, and on that land now stands Asiana City. It is home to Solaire, Resorts World's Westside City and City of Dreams. Later on, he got married to Sylvia and started a family with her. And to make his dream come true, he gave everything he had while she managed his assets as his personal manager and company treasurer. He never slowed down, even when his body could no longer keep up with work at 77 years old. To keep things going, he handed the job of head and CEO to his son Buds Wenceslao while he was still running the big decisions as an honorary chairman. Even through the horrors of 2020, the business thrived in profits, but by the following year on September 17th, the company publicly announced that Sylvia's husband had passed away. It was a painful loss for the family, and to honor his memory, Sylvia Wenceslao stepped up as chairman of the board. She did this even while holding her title and job as a doctor, and her achievements from this point were nothing short of breathtaking. That same year, under her leadership, the company finished a new building in Makati called 58 Jupiter, a passion project her late husband had been working on for almost a decade. Then she opened the St. John Paul II Chapel, another project Delphin had personally promised to complete before he died. She honored his memory by finishing the final phase of her husband's master plan that had been in the works since 1959. 1 year later, a brand new 15-floor office tower opened inside Asiana City. And in 2023, DMW AI opened Park Call, a 70,000 square meter mall and open park in the heart of Asiana City. In 2024, the first families moved into Mid-Park Towers, a brand new set of homes inside the development. Forbes noticed all these things and put her at number 43 on the Philippines' 50 richest list in 2025. But even as the new family home outside continues to expand, she spends most of her time inside the walled fortress within the city. Yet the next person on our list is on another level. Number 4. Gretchen's province. She comes from sugar and old land, known to many as Soledad, but everyone calls her Gretchen, and she once married the most powerful businessman in the Philippines. Now let's walk through her world, starting with where it all begins, her home. Soledad Gretchen comes from a family in Pontevedra. After coming back from exile, she and her now late husband Danding Cojuangco managed multiple sugar plantations spanning over 4,000 hectares across multiple cities. For most people, this isn't just a sugar farm anymore, but an entire province. The rolling fields were filled with sugarcane, and the gravel roads in between led to the low and wide houses built in Spanish colonial style. The walls of these private homes are thick and white, the windows capiz shell, antique wooden furniture from the Oppen and Lichauco families, and dark floors with high ceilings. As you might expect, the neighborhood is very quiet, mostly because the nearest neighbor is kilometers away. Today, Gretchen is the heiress of the Montilla Haciendas and the Lichauco properties in Manila and Pasay, including the historic Cartimar. She didn't arrive at this life empty-handed, but carried her own dynasty into the marriage. So when she merged with her husband's massive business empire, the result was much bigger than anything both families had ever dreamed of. But even more interesting is the story of how this home came to be. This takes us all the way back to November 22, 1956. It was the day she married her husband, marked just a few months after Danding was done with schooling in the United States for the time. They settled in the newly urbanized New Manila area as neighbors to close relatives and future political influencers Ninoy and Cory Aquino. But this relationship would not last, as it was right before the political tensions of that era reached its peak and slowly tore the extended family apart. But before that, Danding's business had started to show promise, and as his wealth grew steadily, so did his proximity to power. The family wealth reached over $1.1 billion in 2016. At one point, the business empire accounted for 25% of the entire country's GDP. A quarter of the nation's entire output came from the company. Many native food companies relied on long-term contracts with San Miguel Corporation for sugar, and his group had the highest interest held in food, power, oil refining, and infrastructure. At this point, the family's business was now running the country's daily life. But that kind of power did not come without cost. Gretchen's now late husband was the only civilian among the Rolex 12, a group of 12 men who planned and enforced the 1972 declaration of martial law. He benefited from that for over a decade, but almost lost everything when People's Power came up and sent his family into exile. He returned and strived alongside his wife. The last time he was seen was during an annual meeting of Petron stockholders on June 2, 2020. 6 days after that, he turned 85, and he passed away another 6 days afterwards from pneumonia at St. Luke's Medical Center on June 16th of that year. That wasn't the end. Not long after her husband passed away, Gretchen was now at the center of a large business empire, larger than ever. In 2024, San Miguel reported that its revenues were now up to 1.5 trillion pesos. The old home is still there, with the wide rest houses facing the sea at Calatagan. The last time it was featured in any public way was in the July 1964 issue of Harper's Bazaar alongside Manila's social elite. News sources describe that moment in history as the last time she ever welcomed public attention. Today, she focuses on philanthropy, but spends most of her time hidden behind 4,000 hectares of sugarcane and very high walls. Number 3. The Palm Avenue Home. We now move on to the 89-year-old widow who leads one of the most powerful political dynasties in the Philippines today. Meet Juliet Romualdez, the woman who never stopped fighting despite everything the world threw at her. But first, we begin with her residence. Officially located at 1 Palm Avenue, Forbes Park in Makati City, sits a compound that, unlike others mentioned in this video, seems built to grab attention. For one, it's located in Forbes Park, a region that is widely recognized as anything but a neighborhood. It is the kind of place where leading elites, like those related to the Sy-Cosons and Cojuangcos, live. It is the modern hub of old Philippine money, gathered away from the rest of the world. Of all the elites found there, Juliet Romualdez has lived here the longest, raised children, buried a husband, and fought multiple governments. Leading financial analysts estimate the land and structure well above 500 million pesos. But forget the number for a moment. What matters is what is inside. When you walk through the grand receiving hall, it feels as if you are walking through history. The furniture in this area is Spanish colonial. Easily recognized fit is heavy wood, carved armrests, the kind of pieces that were already antiques in the 70s. On the sides, you'll find European glassware, and far above your head, you'd see several chandeliers, and along the way, you'd also notice portraits lining the walls. There is a private family chapel inside the compound, as well as manicured gardens surrounding the small building as if marking its territory. So what kind of person built all this with her? Meet the late Benjamin Romualdez. Born on September 24, 1930. He served as governor of Leyte and was appointed as Philippine ambassador to China, Saudi Arabia, and the United States. On top of that, he was Imelda Marcos's younger brother, a natural role that gave him access to power very few could imagine. During those years, ran media companies, he sat on corporate boards and negotiated base agreements with the United States. He was one of those who made diplomatic relations between the Philippines and the People's Republic of China in the 70s a reality, and because he was good at it, he got appointed for the role officially as Manila's first ambassador to Beijing. But as we've seen multiple times, such massive levels of power in the Philippines always comes at a high price. So when the People Power Revolution swept Ferdinand Marcos from Malacañang in February 1986, it swept the entire Romualdez network with it. Cocoy went into exile with his family in 1986 and did not return to the Philippines until 14 years later, in 2000. For those 14 years, Juliet kept the family together all by herself. The following years weren't easy either, with the Presidential Commission on Good Government hunting everyone who was remotely supporting Marcos in public since the 80s. During this time, the authorities had seized a lot of his assets, so much so that the family started making plans to build a new residence. The process was far from easy, as Juliet's husband was brought up across several legal battles until his body gave out. He spent the rest of his life trying to clear his name until he passed away on February 21, 2012. Juliet was now a grieving widow, but the cases did not stop just because her husband was gone. In 1986, the PCGG seized over 6 million shares in the Philippine Commercial and Industrial Bank, saying they came from wicked wealth connected to Cocoy. The legal fight over those shares dragged on for decades. Then in 2015, First Philippine Holdings Corporation went a step further by asking a Makati court to force Juliet, who was now 82 years old, to give a deposition in court. Her answer was no, and she took it all the way to the Supreme Court. Then on July 5, 2023, the Supreme Court made a decision in favor of Juliet and canceled the charges made against her. The conclusion of the High Court stated that since her late husband was cleared of any connection to the criminals involved, his widow should not be used as bait for getting free money. She was 89 when that final ruling landed, and she won. Though most of the woman's life has been marked by endless battles and controversy, her home represents a private hub of peace and rest. At almost 90 years old, she has lived through martial law, exile, sequestration, cancer, loss, and decades of litigation. Yet she fought hard and turned all of it into a dynasty that now sits at the top of Philippine power. This was the work of Juliet Romualdez, the woman who never stopped fighting. Yet it doesn't come close to what we're about to show you. Number 2. The Dee-Campos home. While there are women who inherit fortunes, there are others who guard them. Beatrice Dee-Campos was the second kind, serving as the matriarch behind Unilab, the biggest pharmaceutical company in the Philippines. Now let's talk about where she lived. It tells the story before she ever opens the door, as Unilab's very first offices were once located inside the residence of her late husband, Jose Yao Campos in Santa Mesa. That's right, the biggest pharmaceutical company started inside the family home, and that spirit never left. Inside that little space that barely fits a standard home today, there were almost 30 employees working together in cramped cubicles. Beatrice's younger brother Howard D. described this later as endless work with no hope or assurance about the future. Just ambition and discipline. Thankfully, it paid off not long after, as by the late 1960s, that struggling group had expanded into a company holding the highest market share of any local drug manufacturer in the Philippines. From that old property, the Campos estates have now spread across different locations like prime Quezon City and Makati. They all carry the same DNA with heavy walls and private driveways. The gated entrances have no signage, and inside the interiors mix modern native comfort with Chinese antique accents. Many furniture are made with dark lacquered wood with most ceramic jars brought in from the mainland. The windows are covered with thick curtains, protecting the privacy of rooms wide enough for a big family with 3 children to live and do business together. As for Beatrice, the matriarch of these properties, she was born in 1945 to a family deeply rooted in business and philanthropy. Her father was Di Hong Lu, and his work was centered around the lumber business. Her maternal grandfather was Vincent Gatamco, who was a well-known philanthropist in Manila's Chinese community before the war broke out. When she and Jose got married and built their life together, both bloodlines fused into something powerful. So what does that kind of power look like up close? Not pleasant, based on what history tells us. Despite the success of the company, her late husband's story wasn't only about medicine. He also moved in very dangerous circles so his hidden properties could be safe. This was mainly because Unilab had grown so powerful that it became a major government supplier, and that closeness made him an easy target. After the 1986 People Power Revolution, he became the first of the Marcos cronies to make a deal with the new leaders by surrendering all he had for the safety of his family and what was left of the company. Despite this major setback, the company thrived until Beatrice's husband Jose passed away on May 1, 2006, at the age of 84. And that was where Beatrice's lone chapter truly began. Wanting to honor her husband's memory, she stepped into the role of matriarch and never looked back. Her children moved into various positions under her rule. Joy Campos Hess became a Unilab executive. Son Joselito, also known as Birch, founded Nutri-Asia and became vice chairman of Del Monte Philippines, while Jeffrey ran Greenfield Development Corporation. 3 children, running 3 separate empires, with the mother at the center of it all. Forbes credited the entire wealth of the family to Beatrice directly, and by 2018, her total net worth from that position alone reached $700 million. Even after she passed away later that year, that value has only climbed ever since, claiming over 25% of the entire country's medical market share. While other sectors almost crashed and burned during 2020's pandemic, that market exploded as demand for Unilab's brands increased. Now the total wealth of her children reaches a total of $950 million. But despite this, Beatrice doesn't have an official gallery on Forbes' database or real estate listings. The estate walls in Quezon City and Makati stay high, and the gates remain closed even to this day. But if you think that is impressive, our final entry is so rich that almost no one believed Forbes for a while. Number 1. The Garden Fortress of Tessy Sy-Coson. She is worth $1.9 billion. She runs the biggest bank in the Philippines. And she does it all from behind walls guarding a home most people will never get past. Step through the gates of Ayala Alabang Village in Muntinlupa, and you are already somewhere most Filipinos will never go. This region is not a neighborhood but a fortress decorated with gardens. The streets are wide and quiet, with all the houses sitting far back from the road. Security guards are standing at every corner. And tucked somewhere in the deepest part of this enclave is a home. And located right in the middle of a compound that sits on more than 3,000 square meters of manicured land is the residence of Teresita Sy-Coson. This is the home of the most powerful businesswoman in the Philippines, built like a fortress with the highest walls and biometric scanners guarding every entry point. The airspace is covered legally, meaning drones and unauthorized aircrafts do not linger here. Doing so would get you arrested in a heartbeat. Over 36 staff move through the property like clockwork to maintain the home. And the annual upkeep rivals the operating budget of a small company. But as we'll see, everything changes once you step inside. The grand halls are floored in imported Italian marble instead of Philippine stone, shipped in and laid down across rooms that stretch wide enough to make you feel small. Walk deeper and you find the art. It almost feels like you've walked into a museum showing original works by Jose Joya and Benedicto Cabrera, both also known as Ben Cab. Joya, was the artist who represented the Philippines at the 1964 Venice Biennale. Benedicto was the national artist whose pieces now sell for millions at auction. Yet Sy bought their costliest pieces and now lives with them as if they were her own. Speaking of things expensive, Sy has a personal jewelry gallery in her private room, equipped with its own vault system. What sorts of riches lie inside that large vault can only be guessed, but what we do know for sure is the massive size of the infinity pool overlooking the gardens outside. The flowers look like something drawn out by hand, while the entire estate holds a second property in Dasmariñas village in Makati, mostly reserved for family meetings. But all that isn't what makes her stand out among the others. While most women at the time were known for inheriting comfort and sitting still, Tessy Sy slowly built her fortune through grief and pain. In 2003, her husband Louis Coson passed away. He was a lumber tycoon, a quiet and private man whose business aligned with the Sy family empire. His death from illness was kept private, the same way everything in this family is private. Tessie at the time was in her early 50s and had 3 children. She was already deep in leadership roles across the SM group, particularly the retail and banking machine. Her father, Henry Sy the Older, had spent decades building from a single shoe store in Quiriedo. The year her husband died was also the year she had to fully focus on the family's business. It was the only way she could honor his memory, as she believed expanding the company's assets was what he wanted. So in 2004, barely a year later after stepping into office, she made the move that changed Philippine banking forever. BDO, which was ranked 13th among local banks, bought into Equitable PCI, which was the 3rd largest bank in the country back then. That deal started a chain of events that would eventually make BDO the #1 bank in the Philippines by total assets, loans, deposits, capital, and trust funds under management. It dominated all metrics, standing as #1 across the board. Her story at that point was simple. She lost her husband, honored his memory, and built the biggest bank in the country. Yet she didn't stop there. By 2005, her bank had merged with Equitable PCI. And by 2007, the merger was officially complete. By the early 2010s, there was no debate anymore. BDO had won by a landslide. Fortune magazine took notice of this and listed Tessy Sy-Coson on its 50 most powerful women in the world, from 2001 to 2010. Now, tell us what you think. Have any of these stories inspired you? Or is there someone important we've missed, or maybe just an honorable mention? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Her Status. Now click on the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.